So welcome along to the second of these Blues Zooms in these troubled times. And really, where do we start in this week? Let's introduce each other, first of all. Next to me, Paul Rivers, long-standing Blues fan, known Paul for many years. And now director of Solihull Moors. Hope you're not defecting, Paul.
No, certainly not. It's just something that kind of keeps me amused while the Blues scenario is just so difficult at the moment.
It is. Below Paul is Dean Gripton, now an ex-colleague of mine at Sky some years ago. Now you can probably see all the copies of the Rothmans on his shelf behind him. Dean works for Football Manager as the head of EFL research. He's got a head full of stats, knows everything about every player, just about. We're going to pick your brains a bit later, Dean. Next to Dean is Kim Smyth. Your Twitter bio, Kim: broadcaster, writer, musician, and shouty about things I feel passionate about, which is blues, I hope.
That's one of them. Although sometimes the life of misery is a bit testing.
Yeah, I think that's part of all of our DNA. And down at the bottom is the man you'll all recognise. It's Paul Robinson, great servant of the football club, and now, of course, the. Give me your job title again, Paul. It's the lead
under-18 lead development coach.
Under-18 lead development coach. Now, I'm going to start with you because if you've been looking at Twitter today, your name has been cropping up all over the place because we thought that you might well be one of the rescue men to come in and see the club through till the end of the season. Maybe you and Craig Gardner, but it's not. It's Craig and Steve Spooner. So first of all, are you disappointed they didn't ask you?
A little bit, but it's football, so you kind of expect it and you get on with it. I'm not too fussed about it. Obviously, it's nice. My name's been touted out there, and the fans are recognising that they want me involved. But it is what it is. So I just move on and I get on with my normal day-to-day life.
Yeah, I mean, you have been and you remain on furlough, right? So you've not been around the club anyway.
Yeah, I'm on furlough. Yeah, so we're all not working at the moment just because of the situation with the coronavirus, and the academy's obviously not started up yet, and they're still doing online stuff. So yeah, not back in work yet.
However, Steve Spooner, who works with you with the academy, has been on furlough as well. So simply, I mean, he's been off for 3 months, and he's been called in. It sounds like specifically to do this firefighting role.
Yeah, well, Steve's been at the club longer than me. He's been in the background working with all the young kids that are in and around the first team at the moment, and they will probably see him as a little bit of guidance for Craig Gardner at the moment. Yeah.
What sort of jobs? I don't know Steve at all. I mean, I know he's been around the lower leagues for a long time as a player and some coaching in non-league as well. What kind of a guy is he?
Steve's a real nice guy. Got a lot of time for Steve. He knows the game. Like you say, he's played the game. He understands. He understands the kids that are in around the squad as well because he's worked with them before. So I took Steve's role, and Steve, we changed in the summer because I was 23s under Bealey, and then Steve was under 18s manager, and we swapped.
Right. So he's under 23s now. So he's working with the older ones, and you've been working with Jude and the under 18s, right? Before Jude got promoted.
Jude was with me last year, so Jude was with the 23s last year because the quality of player that he is, he needed to play at that level to see where he's at now. Yeah. So I worked with Jude quite a lot last year, and so Steve's obviously he's managed Jude through the younger age groups, the 16s, the 18s at a certain point. But like you say, Steve's with the 23s. They've been linked with the first team more this year, so it's perfect for the club if they can get it going and the two of them can get it right. Then fingers crossed, the club will survive.
Yeah, we'll come to Jude and the young players and the future. We hope in a bit. I'm just going to go up to Dean, Steve Spooner. Have you come across him on your all the stats and all the people you know? Has he got a good reputation, do you think?
It seems to have a good reputation in the game, in the youth, in the youth systems, as Paul's mentioned there. Obviously been at Blues a long time. That's quite important. He's been at Blues a long time. He understands the fans and he understands what we like and what we need of players. He's seen what's happened around the club in the last 4 or 5 seasons where we've had so many relegation battles go to the last day. And, it looks like it might go to the last day this season as well. And hopefully that experience Steve has had with the club in the last few years will help us get it over the line.
Yeah, we were chatting earlier on today, Dean, and you raised a very good point. You said, he's not been around the club for 3 months. I mean, he's not going to have spoken to any of the players, know who's doing what. It's not, that's a problem, isn't it?
I think that's going to be a problem in terms of, obviously they've been back in training a few weeks, and Steve won't have been there with them doing whatever drills they do defensively, attacking set pieces and all that sort of thing. All the drills they've been doing, he's not been part of, and he's now got to go in and start again and find out what they've been doing, try and work out what they've been doing right, what they've been doing wrong.
Yeah, so it's in Stoke at the weekend, and they've just been thrashed by Leeds. But listen, it's going to be difficult. Steve Spooner and Craig Gardner going in together. Let's get a female view from Kim. I know you're a diehard Blue, Kim. Just give us the feeling of the crisis at the club. It is a crisis, isn't it? How do you feel? I mean, is it that bad, do you think?
Well, it's gone on for so long. It's not a sort of quick crisis, is it? Because really, this has been going on for 10 years, and for an awful lot of those years, we've had the misery of circling the drain at the end of most of those seasons. And I think, unfortunately, it just represents the general state of the club that has been going on for a while. And, unfortunately, in a way, Pep's just been the victim, because he was put into the job that a lot of fans really weren't sure he was capable of, but he was put in the job anyway. I think he's tried to make the best fist of it that he can. But once again, we're in a mess. And certainly on social media last night, it was a very depressed Blues fans saying, here we are again, end of the season, and we're in danger of going down.
Yeah, he was getting some pelters. I mean, Pep's had a funny reign. I mean, there was a time when it looked as like he brought Jude through and he was doing okay. But, since the restart, he's been absolutely slaughtered. Paul Rivers, I know we're going to come to Dong, and you have met him. But the circumstances of Pep's departure, he came out and said, "I'm leaving," and people say, "That's a very odd bit of timing." Was he pushed, do you think? Before, I mean, did they say we don't want you, and that's what's caused all this? He's hung around because managers don't leave, do they, for nothing? There's contracts, the severance and all the rest of it. Is that why he stayed, do you think?
I suspect so. I think he was probably only ever going to be an interim appointment, and for whatever reason, they saw this season as a season of transition after the problems of last season with the FFP points penalty, restructuring the finances and getting things sorted out. Whether they've done it badly or well is a matter of a point of view, really. But I suspect he was only ever here for the short term, and it was inevitable that at some point there'd be the announcement that he's going. I think I'm surprised that having made the announcement, they left him there to have 9 games when clearly he just didn't have the wherewithal, the authority, the presence. And I think that really showed on the performances on the pitch, that you don't, as a fan looking on, you don't seem to have the confidence that the players are working to a pattern that they necessarily thoroughly believe in, or that they're playing with a long-term direction and thought process in their minds.
Paul, as a player, do you recognise those kind of comments? Is that something which would have played on the players' minds?
Of course it would. I think if as a player, your manager comes out that he doesn't want to stay or he's going to leave at the end of the season with still 9 games to go, and players would have felt a little bit comfortable with the points difference as well, but it's not worked well. It's not worked well at all. So the club have acted quickly, and they don't want that scenario again. So it's going to be really close. I mean, everyone's hoping on this Wigan points deduction. That's what everyone's hoping on. But we shouldn't be at this point. We're a great club. I've been here for 7 years now, and I've loved every minute of it. And the fans just want honesty, don't they? That's what the fans want. They want honesty to come from certain people at the football club. They want to know what direction they're going and why they're doing these. They just want answers to what's going on. That's all they need. Yeah,
I mean, communication, transparency from the ownership. If you don't mind, you can take us inside into Wast Hills and in the inner sanctum. I know. I mean, there is practically zero communication from Rendong, and that's the way it is. So maybe that is the Chinese way. Listen, it's their right to do that, I guess, but it doesn't make the fans feel any better, does it? when you're inside there and you go to training every day, you're working with the kids, I know, but I mean, you know, there must be a feeling about the place, about the ownership and that the sort of, does it feel like a happy place to you?
It was with the players, yeah. I mean, for me, it's my great get out is that I work with a great group of kids. So that's my get out. I love coaching. I love coaching the boys. I love watching them develop, and that's my goal. That's my job. Whatever else goes on is none of my business. I don't have any interest in interfering with anything. My role as a coach of what I get paid for is them boys and their futures, and I've thrown everything into trying to get them the best futures that they can possibly have. Obviously, you're always disappointed when results don't go your way, which is understandable because I used to hate losing. I hated losing, and that was in my blood. And if no one else felt that being grumpy around the place and being happy if you've just lost the game, then you needed your head tested because it's not acceptable losing a game and finding it funny. But no, for me, there was always days where the results weren't going our way, and yeah, understandably, you're upset and you're not happy.
You don't have to answer this if you don't want. Did you see Rendong around the pitch? Does he? You know, there's a photograph and it appeared, I think, on the club website of him in full kit. You know, with a ball at his feet. Does he hang around the training side of it, as far as you can see, or not?
Well, yeah, of course. You've seen the pictures. The pictures prove it that he's in and around the touchline. Again, is it right? I don't know. I can't answer that question. That's something that Pep, the manager, or with what Don himself wants to do, that's down to him. He feels, and owners have the right. Owners pay a lot of money. They expect more from their players, and they can walk around the club. It's up to them with what they want to do. Total different CEOs they work in different ways. So with Don, he feels that he wants to be in and around the players and walk around the training pitch. Then that's his choice. That's his decision.
Yeah, I guess, Paul, and taking you to Solihull if you want, and the structure of a very well-run club, run by a Blue Nose as well, isn't it, Darryl Hills, who might have bought Blues some years ago. But when it's know-how, isn't it? The structure of the club, the infrastructure. To me, over the last 10 years, the club has really lacked that know-how of how to run a football club. Kim, you're nodding along as well. I mean, we'll come to you now. But Paul, I mean, is that something you see and agree with?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was looking back at some of the recent history of Blues, and I think it was back in 2007 that Carson Young first took an interest in the club and then completed his deal in 2009. And since then, it's gone from pillar to post, really. And obviously, we had the receivership in Hong Kong with Ernst & Young appointed. And I know there were some clubs in the championship at that point that tried to get us to have a points deduction because of the Hong Kong receivership. And we've never been able to get it back on a proper even keel since then. And I think then the rather strange change of ownership into the new guy, Paul Soon, of Trillion Trophy Asia, and now this reputed Mr. King behind it, it makes it a bit murkier, and it makes you wonder how we're actually going to ever get out of that situation at the moment.
Yeah, Kim, I think it does seem, doesn't it, that Mr. King really, he just trusts Rendong, and he is his right-hand man inside the club, and it's difficult to see that changing unless the club were to be sold. What do you think of him and the way things have been handled?
Well, you know, as Paul was just saying, it's just never been stable, really, since the season we were relegated from the Premiership. Because, of course, yes, Carson Young came in. He waved a lot of money around, which I'm sure must have made the cash registers ring in a lot of agents' eyes. But since that relegation at the end of the 2011 season, it's just gone from bad to worse. There's been occasional hiccups when it's been okay. And initially, when Chris Hughton was around for that season, Blues played extremely well. But of course, Hughton's a clever guy, and he saw the writing on the wall, and I don't blame him one bit for moving on. Gary Rowett also did a good job initially, and you know, the other Gary Monk. But we've now got through so many managers, and Blues certainly in my lifetime, have never been like that. We've never been one of these sacking clubs.
Yeah, I think we're going to overtake Watford for more managers, aren't we? I think it's 8 in 9 years. Is that since 2000?
It's something.
It's a hell of a lot, isn't it? 6 in 3 years. It will be whoever gets the job now, which we'll come to. But Dean, I mean, you looking across all your. Did I mention at the top? Dean is a Blues fan, and I mean, we must have had more managers than anybody, haven't we? Across the whole football league in the last few years.
In the last 5 or 6 years, yeah. I know Notts County have had a lot of managers as well, and now look where they are. So, it's the constant turnover of managers is one thing. I think the other issue is that the two managers who've been relatively successful in the last few years have been Monk and Rowett, and they have left because of fallings out. With the board at over various issues, and I wonder whether on the managerial grapevine that's something that experienced managers will talk to each other about and think about, and maybe they'll look at Blues and think, I don't quite fancy that job anymore. Yeah,
there was a rumour earlier today as well. I think I read it somewhere. I'm not sure. I can't stand it up, but that Lee Carsley had been approached possibly as an interim, but didn't fancy it. Now I've got no idea whether that's true. Lee, Paul, go on.
Interestingly, Tom Ross has gone on Twitter tonight to say he's spoken to Lee and it isn't true.
Right. Okay. Twitter can be a festering mess, can't it? But I mean, Lee Carsley would fall under the, he was the assistant to Cottrell, wasn't it? And it didn't go terribly well. But let us ask that question then. Which pool are Blues fishing in now? Is it going to be the experienced manager who will cost a bit, or is it going to be somebody like that who's on the way up or might be just a little bit malleable, working with this demanding ownership or certainly stewardship at the club? Let's start with Paul on that. What do you think? Which way are they going to go?
Which one?
Sorry, Paul Rivers.
It's very difficult to know, Chris. Obviously, the way the Chinese are going to work may be in ways that a logical structure that we don't necessarily think of. My suspicion, and it's only that, is that I think they'll look abroad. And I also suspect that they already have someone lined up. I don't see them fishing around for a Lee Bowyer or trying to pick up someone from the lower leagues. I think they will probably pay, and they'll go for someone who is probably high caliber, but therefore quite risky in terms of a culture shock to bring into the British game at championship level. It's just a hunch. I don't know anything.
I mean, it's fair to say, isn't it, that thus far, and people have been criticising the administration, including me. I mean, and nobody's really happy with the way things have happened because of the points deductions and the way things have been handled. But behind it all, Mr. King has been putting his hand in his pocket. So the money has come, and what we don't know now is whether that's still going to be the case. One or two whispers that might start to dry up. Anybody with any thoughts on that that might know more than that? I know Daniel Ivory, who was on this program last time, thinks that might be the case. But what do we think? I mean, it's not as if he's been shy with his money so far, is it?
Far from it, I think. Sorry.
No. Okay. I know what you mean. The money has been there, but the thing I think that bothers me most is if they are going to go for a foreign manager, they're going to go for another sort of marquee type signing like they did with Zola, because of course Zola was I'm so sorry, it's my doorbell.
It's the postman.
I'm going to go and deal with it.
It's Rendong telling me busy.
Yeah, that's it. They've come for me. But they went for Zola, and huge name as a player, and was a fantastic player, but he was an awful manager. And I just hope they're not going to do something like that again, and they're actually going to try and make an appointment that's sensible in terms of getting the game played.
Yeah, Paul Robinson, were you playing under Zola? You were, weren't you?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I was the captain at the time.
Was that the sort of thing that was spoken about in the dressing room? That you mentioned earlier, that certain players respond to certain types. That it ended terribly badly, didn't it?
Gianfranco was a real nice guy. He was
but that's not the thing, though, is it? I mean, we know he's a nice guy. I mean, so many of them are.
But yeah, exactly. And you're made for management, or you're not. That's the way I look at it. You understand the Birmingham job. You understand what the fans want. You understand what the players need. I think Gianfranco come into the team, which was difficult because it was Gary Rowett had instilled a winning mentality and a team ethic, and it was hard to change that. And you'll find with a lot of foreign managers is that they want to play this fancy, sexy football, and it doesn't work. Championship football, sometimes you are not going to play fancy, sexy football unless you've got the players that are available at your peril. Like West Brom and Leeds, for instance. Now they've got sexy players. Birmingham City haven't. They're renowned for it over the years. They're a workman's man's club where they're hard-working, blood, grit, fight, 90 minutes, in your face, fans right behind you. It's renowned. You're not going to change that. You're not going to change that mentality. So for me, when we're talking about managers, for me now, I'd love to see Craig Gardner given the opportunity because he is Birmingham City through and through. You've got Lee Bowyer, who's played for Birmingham City. Yep. So if you're looking at them type of managers, then give them the chance. Give them the opportunity. You don't need money. You don't need to spend loads of money because them type of people will create the atmosphere with the players that they've got to work with. End of story. Yeah. Most of the teams that I played with, we never spent money. We had a team spirit, and that's what got us through. We got promotions. We won things because the changing room was together. That was it.
I can hear people shouting out, Craig doesn't have the experience.
We'll get someone in alongside him then to help him. It's
but for the championship, I mean, it's a risk, isn't it? You've got to see that.
Frank Lampard, you look at Steven Gerrard, they had no experience. They went straight into Derby, Rangers. They've had no experience apart from TV work, and then they've gone straight into Championship football and Scottish Premier League.
Yeah, you've got to start somewhere. Funny enough, Steven Gerrard's 7-1, I think, but I'd eat my hat if Steven Gerrard came to Blues, but I'd love it, but there you go. Dean Gripton, I mean, how many sort of managers are there around the country and who, up-and-comers like that who are making their mark? Can you think of any sort of who are doing really well?
Yeah, there are a number in the lower leagues who have done amazingly well this season. You're looking at Ryan Lowe at Plymouth, who's won promotion the last 2 seasons as a manager. He was with Bury last season. David Artell at Crewe, where they've brought through loads of young players and played some really good football. But I think what the advantage of looking for somebody at this time of year is it's going to be a clean start for someone at the start of the season rather than somebody coming in like Zola did in the middle of the season. So there is that opportunity to make a clean start day one. But on the other hand, you've got to look at, we've got to make appointments that last, and we've got to think about where are we going to be in a year's time, in 2 years' time, 3 years' time. We don't want to be having the same conversation in a year's time. We've got another man. We've sacked someone else because they haven't achieved. I think the mentality on and off the pitch has got to be that we've got to progress. But it's not going to come instant success. We aren't going to be with the greatest will in the world. We're not going to be sitting here in 9-10 months' time at the end of next season saying Blues have won promotion to the Premier League, because that's, unless there's a massive injection of cash, which there isn't going to be, then that's not going to happen. I mean, you look at the successful teams this season in the division we're in, Leeds and West Brom and Brentford, and those teams. Brentford are there because they built it over 4 or 5 seasons with a plan, with knowing what they're going to do, knowing the sorts of players they want to recruit. Leeds have done it again with a top quality manager. It's taken them 2 seasons under Bielsa to win the league. That's how hard it is to get out of this division. And Albion have had the again, they brought in a top quality manager and spent a lot of money on players. We couldn't buy someone like Pereira for 12 million, who's best player in the league.
They bought Sunjic for, he could be going very soon. 12 months ago. And Harry was only, a year before that. It looked, and you know why they're here. The Chinese investment, they want to get into the Premier League. And the quickest way to do that is to buy your way in with experienced players, big name managers. And suddenly, whether it's because the money's running out, I don't know, but you know, suddenly we're talking about fishing in a much smaller pool and bringing the young players through, which we'll come to Paul Robinson about. And let's play great football, but have the kids as well. We saw the Spanish players come in, and we thought, oh, yeah, this could be great. And they were ditched within about 6 weeks. I mean, I just do not understand the strategy. Paul, can you shed any light?
You can't put trust on the young lads at such a young age, and they've had lack of experience in Championship football. These young players need to go out on loan. A lot of these young players nowadays need to go out on loan and experience League 2, League 1 football and find their way in football. And then they know when they come back to Birmingham, they're ready. They're ready because they've experienced being kicked in the air. They've experienced different changing rooms, different atmosphere, not the cushy that you'll have at the Trillion Trophy training ground that they get every day. They'd have to go somewhere different. We can't now. I feel sorry for these young lads because it's going to be very difficult for them for these next 4 games. And the fact is, we are putting so much pressure on them. It's too much for them. It's not fair. It's not fair on the young boys because they're not ready. They're not ready, some of them. Right.
I mean, the last couple of games, a number of the academy boys who you'll know very well have been on the bench. Nico Gordon, Jaden Reed. Yep. Obviously, Jude is, a great physical specimen and has come through. So you're saying it's not the way to go, you don't think?
Yeah, but Jude's a one-off. You look at Jude; he's a one-off with what he's done. He's an exceptional talent, and he's built like a machine. He's an athlete. He's a man. He's an experienced head now. When you look at him, he played 39 Championship games? Is he 30, 37, 38 Championship games? I mean, what 17-year-old does that year in, year out? There's not many of them. So you've got to look at Jude as an exception. If we can get our kids out earlier on loan, then maybe we can get them for the next 2-3 years playing 37, 38 Championship games. They're established in the team, and you're building a team there for the future.
So it's not the right time now, in other words.
No, I just think it's not fair. It's not fair on the young kids because you're asking too much of them. And who's everyone going to blame? Are you going to blame the young kids for being chucked in when there's no need to chuck them in? You can't blame the young kids.
Yeah, Paul Rivers, it sounds like the strategy is so unclear, isn't it? That the administration doesn't know whether to stick or twist with this, really. And money might be the factor at the end of the day, but this is the maddening thing, isn't it? The inconsistency. Is it a project with the kids coming through, or is it let's try and force the issue and get into the Premier League with established players?
Honestly, Chris, I wish I knew. I think from everything I've seen of the way Dong and the current hierarchy operate, the only way they really see it is to actually buy established players and try and get in that way. I think that's the only game that they will know. And I suspect, obviously, they're going to be working with agents who want to push their players into the club as well. And given their relative lack of experience in football, they have their heads turned by agents promising this, that, and the other. If you look at the turnover of players since they took charge, it's incredible how many have come in and how many agents have made huge amounts of money on the back of it. We had Darren Dean for a while, who sat in on every game, and he was acting as a very close advisor to the board at that point. Then you had James Featherstone, who sat in on every home game and was sitting in the front row of the director's box every game. So it's not as if they haven't listened to people. Whether they've been listening to the right people and taking the right advice, I think is a very moot point.
But that's without a football administrator per se, an experienced one, it seemed. Well, you mentioned Darren Dean there. I mean, it seemed that when the TTA came in, they didn't have the experience. The first thing they turned to for recruitment was an agent, which is like putting 2 and 2 together and making 5, really, isn't it? But it ended in tears. Director of football Jeff Fatir, agent running the show, people pulling in different directions. Harry Redknapp was brought in. He didn't know what the other were doing and all the rest of it, and it went wrong. So you wonder whether they'd go back to that. But then without the experienced administrator, I mean, who's calls the shots, really? I mean, Dean, what do you think?
It does need a sort of root and, a root look at where we go. How do we want the football club to be? Do we want to throw money at it and get lucky like Wolves did by having the financial Fosun come in and spend a lot of money? Do we want to do it that way? Do we want to look at a club like Norwich City, who have brought in through a lot of academy product, but they've signed a lot of young players, and that was how they won their promotion last season. I know they're not doing great this season, but they might be the sort of model we want to look at. Or do we want to look at a model like Preston North End, who are a club who are pushing for the promotion for the playoffs, and they signed players from the lower leagues, from Rochdale, Barnsley, Morecambe, Cork City, Bristol Rovers. They've signed those sorts of players, all for very small amounts of money, who they could sell for much more money if they weren't to win promotion.
Yeah,
you have to think about which sort of way do we want to build the club, and think about a long-term approach, really.
Kim, patience. Are you happy with that? If it takes ages to get back in the Premier League, it will happen one day. You would hope. I mean, as a project, and if kids are played, I mean, will the fans be happy with that? As long as the clubs run properly.
I think it
not
depends
go up for a few years.
Fans. I think it depends on the fans. I mean, obviously now coming up to 10 years away from the Premier League, there's a lot of Blues fans who do actually enjoy the Championship. But I don't know, I'm happy with a more patient approach because I think you get more results doing it that way. But unfortunately, what I don't see from the board is them having a patient approach, which is represented in all the, this sort of merry-go-round of players and managers that's been going on for a while now. Okay,
well, let's talk about the EFL now and the fit and proper owners and directors tests and fit and proper persons and all that Blues fans have moaned about for many years, with some justification. You have to say, on occasions, a little bit worrying. Paul Rivers, there was obviously the Wigan situation. We wait to see how that resolves itself. But Rick Parry, running the EFL now, very experienced man, of course. Worrying things I thought he said yesterday about the Wigan situation. And saying that the guy there, Oh Young, funny enough, from Hong Kong as well, there are parallels with Blues, who passed the test, albeit in self-certification. So in other words, if he says he's okay, he is okay. That's a bit worrying. Rick Parry says we shouldn't be relying on random foreign owners. Our test, bluntly, is limited, he says. I mean, those are words, really. I mean, and they've admitted also very recently that the judgment has got to be adaptation has got to improve. Where does it leave Blues, though, do you think?
I think it's very difficult. I mean, just as a couple of general comments, Chris, I mean, the owners and directors test, and I took it for Solihull Moors. As you say, it's a self-certification. It's a bit like saying, well, okay, I've not been bankrupt, I've not done this, that, and the other. Yeah. It's a bit like going to the US when they ask, basically, are you a terrorist? Are you carrying guns and about to kill people? Now, which, is anyone ever going to say yes? Of course they're not. But it's quite difficult to see how this plays out in the Wigan scenario because, if the guy had the money, and he passed the test, just because he decided he didn't want to put the money in after that, there's no way that the test could actually legislate.
Yeah, that's the one thing they've admitted that they can't, there's no comeback on that if somebody changes their mind, then there's nothing they can do. But that needs looking at, surely. I mean, if they lodged a bond for a year or something, in that eventuality, then the club is going to be okay until they can find somebody else. Interesting, though, you said you've taken that test yourself. What was it like?
It's a bit like a multiple choice exercise when you're doing a basic exam as an 11-year-old. It's nothing more. Really? It's just very straightforward. You're just ticking boxes. So you're just basically saying, no, I've not done that, not done that, not done that, not done that. Fine, sign, off you go. End off. That's it.
So nobody said to you, could you just embellish on that a little bit? So if you'd have made it all up, then nobody would have said a word. No?
Absolutely no need. I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Andy Holt, the Accrington owner, and he's been very vociferous, particularly on Twitter, about the failings of the EFL and the ownership structure and so on. I have come across a quote from him about the actual owners and directors test. He says, I think it's a disaster. It's a bit like me breathalyzing you tomorrow morning and expecting you not to be on the beer tomorrow night, driving your car back from a party. It doesn't predict any future behaviour and it doesn't control any future behaviour. So there's absolutely no point in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kim?
Sounds about right, because we've seen, obviously at close quarters at Blues, that the fit and proper persons test doesn't work. And then the temptation is to associate it with foreign ownership. But look what's happened to Bury.
Yeah.
They've absolutely fallen apart because I can't remember the chap's name, but he bought
Dale.
Terry and just had no intention, it would appear, of doing the right thing by the club, and they've gone to the wall.
Yeah. Let's go back to Inside Blues, Paul Robinson. The structure of the club. I mean, you go in, and you probably don't even think about it. Every day you go in, you work with your kids, and you don't get involved in the politics. I don't think. What is the structure? Just if you could just describe how you see it from the inside there. Rendon is the CEO. We know that he's got an office at West Hills training ground, and then how does it work below that?
Edward, so you've got Edward there who works alongside Dong. You've got numerous people within the academy that work obviously on our schedule with what we need to do. So it's a well-structured, what you're thinking, it's a well-structured football club. That's what everyone's thinking.
Right. So your boss and all the development guys, I think you were telling me earlier, there's 35 staff on the development age groups, all of whom have been furloughed. That's a hell of a lot. And they've all been furloughed. Between
35, 36, yes. Academy staff, full-time staff members that are working, yeah.
That's amazing. I didn't realise it was as many as that at Blues. And at the head of that is Christian Speakman, right?
Yeah, he's the head of Academy, yeah.
Right. So where does he come in when it comes to overall sort of football strategy, do you think, with Rendon? Is he
I don't
got quite input?
I don't get involved in that. That's with whatever he wants to do with his role regarding Dong. I don't interfere with that. That's none of my business.
Right. But he so you're reporting about the kids to him?
Yeah, so him and Stuart English would be my head of coaching as well, who worked there. So the academy assistant, head of coaching, Stuart English, report to him if I need anything. If not, I'll rely on myself. Okay. So Pep Clotet said before, about a week ago, before he left, that that they wanted. He'd been asked to try and bring kids through and all the rest of it, because that's the way they saw the future. Was that relayed to you by Christian Speakman that they want you to work on certain things for that to happen? Well, my objective is to make the kids professional football players. So that's my goal. That's my job, and that's my only aim is that I want the boys to be as successful as possible throughout their careers. Sometimes it's not possible for some of the kids because they're not either mentally ready or physically ready for it. So they'll move from Birmingham and go and try at another professional football club if they can, which is great. But no, you can't. Sometimes you can't have that expectation of the kids because the pressure nowadays in football is a lot more intense than it was before. Mm-hmm. So when I was growing up as a kid, there was no pressure on me to be in the first team. There was no one there that was pushing me to go, you need to be in the first team, you need to be in the first team. My plan, my guideline, my journey was always down to me. So if I was ready, then the manager would trust me and the manager would put me in, which was a great manager to learn off in Graham Taylor. God rest his soul. Yeah. He was my mentor. I loved working with him. I loved the academy that I grew up with Kenny Jackett, who's now the Portsmouth manager, John McDermott, who's now in the FA, and Jimmy Gilligan, who now works for the FA. I had good people around me that they showed me the pathway of what it should be like. Yeah. Are we teaching these kids now, not just our club, but as in general, are we as a footballing community teaching the kids the right way to come through that pathway? I don't think we are. In England, I don't think we are. When you look at Germany, you look at Spain, they all have an infrastructure of producing young kids after young kids after young kids. In England, we're miles away. We're miles off it. Yeah. Well, there's a hell of a lot of young players coming through. I mean, better than for many years. They ready though? Yeah, but are they ready though, Chris? Because when you look at the Germans, you look at the Spanish kids, they've played, like even when you watch under-21s football, a majority of them kids that are playing under-21s football have played nearly 100 league games for their first team. Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, I mean, the way things are going, it might be that Blues start promoting these kids and, even the ones that have not been out on loan, and it might be a very steep learning curve. Can you tell us obviously Jude Bellingham probably won't be here next season, but you never know. Who are we looking at that
you think, because you work with them and you know them very well, who are we looking at?
Geraldo, who's played for the first team a few times. Geraldo, the centre half, is. I love him. Yeah, I love him. He's got a great attitude. Fantastic footballer. You've got Caelan Boyd-Muntz, who's on the bench. Really intelligent left footer, Northern Ireland international. So you've got some good. You've got Ryan Burke, the left back, again, Northern Ireland. Is he? Oh, I better get that right. Republic of Ireland. I was in trouble. So Ryan Burke, all the boys that I've worked with very closely, they've got a great outside chance of making it through Birmingham's first team. But I feel that it's not the right time for them. They should have gone out on loan. They should have experienced. Geraldo was at Solihull Moors with Paul, with Richard, and unfortunately with the coronavirus, it was cut short. But that would have done him good. Them games there would have developed him into a man and what he is now, and would progress his career. But yeah, they need that style of football. They need that type of football. These kids, they need it. Well,
we'll see next season, won't we? Just while I think about it, and Jude, listen, whether he goes or not, we'll soon find out. But he's got a younger brother as well, hasn't he? Job, who is still 14.
Yeah, Job's 14. Yeah, and again, another exciting talent coming through the ranks.
Yeah, he's what, a 10 sort of playmaker?
Yeah, 10 centre forward. Yeah, he can play in all the attacking areas. Intelligent footballer. Again, still only young, still developing, and again, someone that you don't need to put a lot of pressure on. It's the kid himself will express himself, and he will go to the levels like Jude. I mean, Jude his trajectory's gone mega, and we've all seen what a talent he is, and there's no doubt he will go on and play for England without a shadow of a doubt, and for a top club, because he's that type of personality and player.
Yeah, it's been a long season for him. He's played probably 40 games just about now. Kim, do you think I don't know about you, but I think he's the flag a bit now. It's been tough he's 17 last week. Would you agree with that? He just seems so. Start of the season, it was just unbelievable, wasn't he? It's just tiny for him.
I know, and he's an exceptional talent. It is such a long time since I've seen a young player at Blues who can turn out performances the way he did. And, and I watched Nathan Redmond, Damari Gray come through and others like that. And he's so good. And, I really hope we're going to see him in an England shirt one day. I mean, I know we're not going to keep him, but I think at the moment there is so much responsibility being heaped on his shoulders, and as you say, he's only just 17. I just hope he can sort of hold it together till the end of the season.
Yeah, well, it's almost here, isn't it? A couple of weeks. Paul Paul Rivers, you think he's going? The word is Dortmund, but I think Pep say the other day that nothing's done and dusted just yet. But the price is probably going to drop. Post-COVID.
He's the real deal. He's the real deal, and kids like that don't come around very often. And, when I took guests to Blues games this season, I said, just look at that kid. He's only 16. Just watch what he does. But it's not just what he does with the ball. It's what he does off the ball. It's his whole attitude. It's his whole strength in going into the tackle, winning the ball back and always wanting it. And he stood head and shoulders above a lot of our more experienced players. He's a real deal. I think the price will be there or thereabouts, but we'll probably never know what the exact number will be.
Indeed. And listen, we wish him well wherever he does end up. Dean,
so let's hope we get a fair price for him and get somebody to negotiate some good extra clauses for when he progresses in his career, so we can profit from him when he moves on.
Which brings us to the sort of hobby horse subject of this podcast, really, the Zoom, the reinvestment of what could be 25, 30 million quid. And this is the crux, isn't it? Blues have been, the fans have been felt let down in the past, Kim, haven't they? When players have been undersold, haven't they? And Damari Gray went cheaply, and Jack Butler went cheaply, and Nathan Redmond did, really, because was that the Carson? Yeah, it was the Carson regime, wasn't it? And, it was just let's have the money, and and then they were gone before you knew it. We'd hate to see that happen again. Do you fear it will?
It does bother me. I mean, I would hope that the board recognise how exceptional Jude is and hang on for a proper price for him. But then also it's what they do with the money afterwards, and they've got to spend that wisely. And not do this thing of going for a name because it's a name. They need to get people with some proven ability, either younger players from outside the UK, or looking at this thing about experienced players is such a vexed issue, because sometimes, unfortunately, experienced players come in on big price tags. I mean, Jarosic is one I remember from a few years ago. He came in loudly trumpeted, scored a couple of screamers, but then didn't do anything else.
No.
And I think we've got to avoid going for players like that. And if we are moving Jude on, I mean, to be honest, part of me hopes that any deal we get includes him playing for us for another season to give him more games under his belt, rather than him going sit in the stiffs somewhere else, which I think would be a real waste.
Before we talk about the next manager, let's talk about recruitment, because we've had a good moan about everything else. Paul Rivers, it's not been great, has it? And Dean, I'm going to come to you in a minute and ask you, because we've seen Brentford, just incredible. How do they do it? We buy their players and then they turn around, they've got better ones, and it's a stats-based thing, isn't it? And that's what you do at Football Manager. Can you sort of shed light on what they're looking for? I mean, it's a very scientific thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I mean, a well-run recruitment department will be thinking not only who do we want to sign next season, but who do we want to be playing in each position in a year's time, and in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, and looking down the line. And they'll also be looking at, well, if we sign him in 2 years' time, when we sell him, who do we want to replace him with? So we need that sort of level of planning, really, which is how Brentford have worked out. I mean, I just think back to 2016 when we signed Czech Cater for 1-point-something million, a left back, young left back, and he hasn't worked out for us. At the same time, Brentford was signing Rico Henry from Walsall. Down the road, we should have been well aware of what he was up to and what his capabilities were for a third of the price. So, I mean, in theory, what we should be looking at are buying young players at the right sort of age to come into the first team and progress themselves, their careers, and hopefully we can profit if we're in a position to move. And in theory, we've done that recently. I mean, Christian Pedersen was the right sort of profile. He was 23 when we signed him, and he's had the opportunity to come in, play first team football for 2 seasons, and he's now worth a lot more than we bought him for. Kerry Marabti might have ended up working the same thing, because again he was a similar age, but it didn't quite work out for him. But that's the sort of player I'd like us to be looking at.
Yeah, rumours Pedersen could go and Sunjic could go. Paul Rivers, I mean, recruitment. You were laughing like a drain there because you're sick of it. I can see that.
Well, I mean, I guess the problem is if you go with a scattergun approach, you'll get what you reap what you sow. Really, I think it's got to be done as a very coordinated way with a clear vision, as Dean said, as to what you're looking for, what kind of profile of player you're looking at, but also then, obviously Paul's here as well, mixing it in with who have we got coming through from the academy. Mixing in the two, so you've got the blend of your homegrown along with what kind of players you want. And if you are trying to get the players in, are they a quick fix? Are they that one-season striker who's going to get you 14, 15 goals and may just lift you into the next level? Or is it someone that you think, okay, hey, they can come into the structure that we've got and we can build them and then build them with the team and hopefully gain some economic benefit from it.
Yeah, Paul Robinson, do you look at...
Right, but I think it's got to be a balance.
Yeah, Paul Robinson, is stats something you look at with the young players? Are you sort of, when you're working with them, obviously, the younger ones, not so much, but as they're getting towards first team, is that something you look at with you and Christian Speakman, that, he needs to improve this or that, and you're breaking it down?
Well, I mean, stats is a big part of the game now. But like Dean's touched on there, is Brentford have a formula. They have a structure with what they believe's right. With us at Birmingham is there a way that I like the fact of is that do we keep our best young lads around for the sake of keeping them around? or do we split them in half? Do we send half the group out on loan and then change them over after 6 months? Do we then let the experienced ones who have then been around the first team and they've not been involved, okay, but they've been around it, do we then swap them over so they go out on loan and experience that? And then the ones that have been out on loan are ready. So if needs be, they're then ready to be used if possible. If the manager then feels that they're right to be put involved with the first team, then great, because they've experienced league football and they understand. Whereas it's very hard for a young kid who's not been out or not experienced any type of football. And Championship football it's hell or leather. If you're not experienced to Championship football, you're in for a wake up call straight away, because you will go to a Barnsley on a Tuesday night when it's raining and you'll be like, oh my God, what is this all about? But yet, if you've played League Two football for at least 6 months and you've come in, you're like, yeah, I'm ready for this. Yeah. If the manager's then looking at you and going, yeah, I can see it in your eyes, you're ready to go out there and you're ready to perform for me, then brilliant.
We do hear about that step up, and there are so many levels in football that, you know, for people watching and increasingly watching at home during lockdown, it's very difficult to, when everyone's playing at the same level, to sort of split up and see the differences. But you've been there, you're a young player, you've seen it, you've done just about everything in the game. Can you just, you know, you mentioned going to a game, like what is different? Is it just the pace of the game or what?
It's the pace, it's the players, it's the atmosphere. Obviously, there's no atmosphere at the moment, because which makes it even worse for the young kids, because there's no fans there cheering them. So it's difficult to get yourself motivated. Yeah. But I made my debut when I was 17, but Graham Taylor believed in me because he'd seen me in reserve team football, which then again, I was playing against men. So I was playing against senior pros who weren't playing in their first teams. I was getting kicked up in the air by, obviously in reserve team football, but I was playing against first team players who weren't playing at the weekend. So they were angry. So I was used to that. Now it's under 23s football. So you're only allowed a certain amount of overage players who can play in it. But yet you got the attitude now of the senior players that when they do want to play in them games, they have no interest. They have no interest in playing them, because to them it's just a 23s game. I'm not bothered by this. And it's not the attitude to have. It's not the attitude to have. Because even when I was coming to the end of my career, I wanted to play under 23s football just because of the fact is that I wanted the young lads to realise what it was like, and I wanted to be an example to them. I wanted to show them an example of what my attitude was like and what to expect to come.
Okay, listen, let's get back to the main point, in so much as very big few weeks ahead. I mean, the thing is, this season's over, end of this month? And we think, Paul, I know from Solihull Moors, the non-league programme is going to come back probably October, do we think? Is it going to be later than where we are?
I think from our perspective, we're hoping not. We're planning for a comeback in September. I think the government's made an announcement today that it's likely it's going to happen. We're waiting the official word, but certainly that's what we're planning. We'll get the players back in August for a pre-season and hope we get a start date sometime in September.
Yeah. But we don't think there's going to be a gap of more than 3 or 4 weeks. There can't be, can there? I mean, Paul. I mean, have you been told that, Paul Robinson, that you know, if you think about it? I mean, I know your development kids have not played at all, have they? So, no idea how that pans out, because there's nobody. You've all been.
No, because we're still in dialogue with different scenarios. I mean, the first team's more important, so all first teams are more important. So to get their seasons up and running was again great, but was it needed? And then now they've got to have a break and then plan for pre-season again. So with ours, it's where do we stand? Is the fact is that the first team are more important, so they need to get themselves up and running again to get ready for the season to start.
So let's say 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Season ends with Gardner and Steve Spooner, and hopefully they get enough points to see Blues over the line. Anything could happen. We know that. So how do we? Let's go around the room. Who do we think? Who would we like? And who do we think will be in charge? Say, I think it's probably September. The season's going to restart, isn't it? Early, mid, perhaps. Paul, crystal ball. Come on, it's only a few weeks ahead. Paul Rivers. Who's it going to be, and who would you like?
I think I'd like someone like Jokanovic, the ex-Fulham manager, someone who's got a promotion on their CV.
Would you work with Dong?
Would he work with Dong? I don't know, but money pays wages, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it just depends at the end of the day how much they're willing to throw at a solution and what is going to be promised. And also, I guess, obviously, whether it's the Jude Bellingham money or whether that just gives them enough headroom to have more comfort within the whole FFP rules to spend more. Maybe there's a promise there. I don't know. Whether that's what will happen, guys, it takes a brave man.
So you like him, but who do you think? I mean, what's your gut feeling? Would it be somebody good?
My gut feeling, as I said earlier, I think it'll be someone we haven't particularly heard of from overseas, and I think it'll be a little bit more experimental again, and I don't know whether it'll end well.
Dean Gripton?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Paul. I mean, on one hand, you might think someone from overseas that we don't know might not be very exciting, but I'm sure Norwich with Daniel Farker and Huddersfield with David Wagner will be pleased with having their unknown managers come in and win the promotion quite early on. So it's whether we have faith in the process and who's going to make the decisions and
who do we think is doing the sourcing for that? That's the thing, isn't it? Who's doing the sourcing? Yeah. Because, I mean, when Darren Dean came in, there was obviously a role in the agents, but Rendon's using somebody. He's not a great football man. So, I mean, somebody's doing that work. And, that's a big
yeah, those two clubs I mentioned had Stuart Webber at the helm when Wagner and Farker were appointed. And, of course, he's a successful football administrator. So we haven't got somebody like that in the house.
I suspect there'll be a lot of people trying to speak to Dong to say they can help with the sourcing. I guess we just don't know how good those people are going to be. But he won't be short of people saying they can try and help him out, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's. I'm not sure that's a good thing or a worry, really. But Kim, what about you? Who would you like, and what do you think?
Oh Lordy, well. If they are fishing around abroad, I would just hope that they can conjure up a Nuno or a Slav, one of those types who knows what they're doing and is also very characterful. I don't know how much faith I have in whether or not that will happen. If they look at a British manager, I mean, certainly there were mutterings on Twitter about Lee Bowyer, and whether or not he's got fed up of what's been going on at Charlton, because they've been having one or two issues, haven't they? But I don't know.
I think Lee Bowyer would come. I've got a feeling he would.
My gut feeling. I don't know. I hate to say it, my gut feeling is that they're not going to get it right again. But I really, really hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, somebody's going to get it. I'm not sure I should ask Paul Robinson, really, because you can't. But listen, we'll put our crystal ball 10 years ahead. And
we're too polite.
You've won the Champions League, Paul, when in 10 years' time, and you're 41, aren't you? Something 41?
41 now, yeah.
Yeah, it's a young man. Young man, you got loads of time to come through and unearth all these young stars. But I suppose we should end with you because you're in there, and well, you haven't been in there. How many weeks has it been since you were at the club?
It's been 3 months now. End of April.
And just give us have you just literally been at home and you've had? I assume you had Zoom meetings and that kind of thing.
Yeah, Zoom, but I've been occupying myself with other webinars, watching other stuff, learning different things. I've enrolled on a course to develop myself as a person. So yeah, I mean, I've loved being around my family because I've not had it for 24 years. I've dedicated my life to football, and the time I've had with my kids, with homeschooling and spend time with my wife I've loved it. I've loved every minute of it. But like you say, football's my love. My family definitely comes first, without a shadow of a doubt. Football is. I just love coaching. I love helping people. I love developing people, and that's what I love doing. So, but I agree with Kim. I'd love to see Lee Bowyer. I really would love to see Lee Bowyer because of the fact is that he's worked on a shoestring budget and they've done exceptionally well. He's gotten promoted on that, and yes, they've had difficult times at Charlton, but he's done a fantastic job. So I would love to see Lee, and he's an ex-Blues player as well, so he understands the fans.
All right.
And his Charlton team played some really good football last season. He brings through a lot of young players through their system. They've had a number of players play their first appearances this year in the Championship, and seems good in the transfer market as well. Does tick a lot of boxes, Lee does.
So Paul Robinson, we know what you got to do. You got to get when you're in work. It'll be the next couple of weeks. It's going to be soon, isn't it? You got to go in there, knock on the door, Hello, Mr. Dom. We all think it should be Lee Bowyer. Well, I'm gonna put my hand up for him as well. I think he'd be a good choice. Don't know, just a hunch with that one, but there are plenty I don't think it will be. Or we should really just mention as well. I mean, there was a big clamour today for bring in Sam Allardyce, Big Sam, and all these old dinosaur names. No, we don't want to go that way, do we?
No.
You know, just a knee-jerk thing. But if he's going to come in for,
it's just another name.
Pardon?
It's just another name, like a name for no reason.
Yeah.
No, it's a step. I think we all agree that's just probably a step backwards. But yeah, we shall see.
Maybe in a couple of years we'll be looking at Paul in the dugout with another old Birmingham name who got a job today, David Dunn.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So we all remember Dunny. We all remember Dunny scoring the winner at Villa Park, don't we?
I also remember him falling over
on his debut as well, falling over. Forget him falling over. Remember his goal at Villa Park.
Yeah.
When Dave
Where's he gone, David
buried
Dunn?
it. Barrow.
Oh,
he's
good.
Barrow, the newest team in the Football League, so he's there.
Yeah.
Great opportunity for him, because of course they're having one promotion.
Yeah, wish him well.
Place is on the up, so wish him well, and hopefully the people who are making these decisions look forward and think about progression, not just of the team, but also of the managers. We'll be thinking he might be our manager in 5 years' time if he's successful at Barrow.
Yeah, and Paul, well, I think we're down the line. We and just to finish with you, you would like to go into coaching, presumably, would you? A manager's job at some stage?
Eventually, yeah. I mean, I'd love the opportunity to go into management at one point. I've done 2 years now under 23s and under 18s football, so I feel I've got the experience. I've worked with the first team as well with Lee Carsley. I've played for 22 years, so I know the ins and outs of the game. I know people's mentality, so I am a good man manager. But yeah, I'd love the opportunity. It's just getting that chance. That's all it is.
Yeah. Go knock on the door and tell Rendon we sent you.
And sort this defence out. How many lack of clean sheets we've got at home? Only 2 clean sheets at home, conceding 3 every game.
15 goals conceded, 5 games. Someone told me it was 28 and 9 games. Is that right? At home? 28 and 9 games at home in a row in the last 9 home games. That's an absolute sieve, isn't it? Robbo, you need to get your boots back on, mate. Yeah, play at centre back and left back.
Exactly.
Listen, guys, we're out of time. Thanks ever so much. Absolutely brilliant. Paul Robinson, I hope you get back to work soon and with the kids, and because they need you and we need them, and we need some successes as well. So fingers crossed, and wish you all the very best. And we'll hope you speak to you again in the future. Paul Rivers, good luck with Solihull, and keep her on. Dean, you got enough books there to put your head in there for centuries by the looks of it. And Kim, it's great to get your perspective as well. You've spoken very well, and
cheers.
Good to hear all those voices. So with that, we'll cross our fingers and say, keep right on. Cheers.
Cheers.
Take care. See you later, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye.